George Russell is having the best season of his career right now, with steady top 5 finishes, an outside shot at the world title and plenty of podium finishes. However, many things happening in his team and F1 itself, outside of his control, make this season also the hardest for him, and the outcome is still uncertain. I don't envy George William Russell at all. I'm Wimbo. Here's 3 seconds to leave a like. As a Mercedes junior, Toto Wolff managed to get George Russell a spot at the Mercedes sister team, Williams Racing. I know it's not really a sister team, it's just a customer team, as they use Mercedes power units. But Mercedes drivers tend to get their first seasons there. Russell was already pretty unlucky to be slotted in at the worst team in those years. Williams wasn't competitive at all, and they were struggling to keep afloat, and they weren't ready to sell yet. At the same time, other drivers from his generation, like Charles Leclerc and Lando Norris, made their debut in slightly better packages. It was easier to score points at Alfa Romeo and McLaren. I think you can compare his situation with that of Gabriel Bortoleto, who is also in the worst team on the grid now after winning F3 and F2. The only difference is that Gabi is teamed up with a very strong teammate, whereas Russell wasn't. Another unlucky situation was that for him to be promoted, a place needed to be available at the Mercedes main team, where Valtteri Bottas and Lewis Hamilton were a very successful combination. So much so that Lewis Hamilton pushed Mercedes to keep Bottas there, which was totally understandable. The Finnish driver always believed he could beat Lewis Hamilton, but he was never a real threat. He hated it when Toto Wolff called him the perfect wingman, but in the end, he was just that. In any case, young George Russell was stuck in the awful Williams package for 3 seasons until Wolff finally gave him the seat in 2022. He did get one race in the Mercedes team when Hamilton couldn't race at the Sakhir Grand Prix in 2020. What happened in that race was almost suspicious. He was on his way to win the race when he was first fitted with a mixed set of tyres, and then, in the end, he had an alleged slow puncture. It looks like somebody out there didn't want him to win. Then he was very unfortunate again when, in the ground effect regulations, Mercedes failed to make a competitive package. Russell thought the car looked fast, but in reality it bounced over the grid like mad with porpoising, and it was a struggle all year. Still, he managed to beat Lewis Hamilton, and he won the Brazilian Grand Prix. The next 2 seasons, the cars were not up to par either, although things looked a bit better in 2024, where he scored 2 wins. Disaster struck when his car was disqualified for being too light in Belgium. That season, he beat Lewis Hamilton again. In 2025, he's an outsider for the title, as the W16 seems to be a bit better than his predecessors. He's scoring podiums, and he is always kind of in the mix to score good points. Unfortunately, for the tall English chap, another problem has popped up. The Mercedes team has 2 drivers, George Russell and Kimi Andrea Antonelli. The latter is an 18-year-old Italian wonderkind who is slowly leaving his mark on the grid. The boy is fearless and very rapid. He's a joy to watch inside and outside the car, and he's making steps towards the front. Especially in Miami, he impressed when he beat Russell twice in the 2 qualifying sessions we had. He put the car on P3 for the main race, where Russell only managed P5, and in the sprint qualifying a day earlier, he put the W16 on frigging pole. He is the youngest pole sitter ever. Now, I have noticed that this is somewhat controversial, as there are F1 purists out there who don't count a sprint pole as a proper pole position, and they don't count a sprint win as a win. But I kinda do count it, especially the qualifying in Q3. When you're driving without fuel and on fresh softs, there's just you and 9 other drivers going for pole. And when you set the quickest time, it counts. Anyway, let's not have this discussion here. It's allowed in the comments. Okay, the sprint race didn't go as Antonelli wanted when he got pipped by an aggressive Piastri and lost places, and when he pitted, the silly Red Bull pit crew sent Max Verstappen out without checking, into the path of the Mercedes driver, and his wing was destroyed, and the Italian couldn't pit anymore. It was still a very impressive display what he showed, and it must have hurt George Russell to be beaten by this kid at something he's always been praised for. George Russell is known for strong qualifying. He wasn't dubbed Mr. Saturday for nothing. It looks like he's about to get beaten at his own game. and immediately Russell starts pointing at the car, saying that there are things wrong with it. Basically excuses, and it's not a strong look, to be fair. The outlook isn't pretty either if a teenage rookie starts beating you. We all know Antonelli will only get better over the years, and I honestly expected him to be around P8 all the time. That would be a very reasonable place for someone that young, especially on tracks he's never driven before. Antonelli was unfortunate again in the main race in Miami when he was pitted before the VSC came in, and his pit stop was slow. George Russell scored a podium finish by just driving and finishing the race. Anyway, his teammate Kimi Antonelli is only 18 and I think he's amazing. He's already been very impressive in those first 6 races, and that must have had an impact on Russell, no doubt about it. To make matters worse, it's not the only ominous thing hanging above his head. There may be more heartache to come for Georgie boy. George Russell is out of a contract after this season. You'd think that with the way he's performing, it's just a formality to sign a new, very lucrative deal with Mercedes. Believe it or not, the opposite is true. There's still uncertainty about his new deal. So much so, he's drinking coffee, yes, a latte, doesn't matter what milk, with other team CEOs like Zak Brown and Christian Horner. All informal, of course. But it shows what's going on. It looks like Toto Wolff is waiting for Max Verstappen to definitely stay with Red Bull before Russell gets his juicy $30 million contract. Ironically, his future is dependent on the performance of someone he fell out with last season. If Verstappen can't get into the top 3 in the standings at a certain point in the season, he's free to go. I wonder if Russell thinks about this when he gets into a fight with Verstappen on track. If Russell causes Verstappen a DNF, he's out of a job. Didn't something like this happen to a driver at Manor? Years ago, he scored points which made the team he was actually with go bankrupt or something. Does anyone know? Where was I? Yes, George Russell and his contract. I'm pretty sure it's hard on him to drive this well and not have job security. I almost feel sorry for him until he opened his mouth again. What did he say? Well, he said that he would have had a couple of championships if he'd been at Mercedes 5 years earlier. In my opinion, that's a bit of an arrogant thing to assume. He's saying that because he beat Lewis Hamilton in the ground effect era twice, he'd be able to do that as well in the V6 hybrid era, where Lewis Hamilton excelled. Listen, I'm not one to defend Lewis Hamilton quickly, you know this. But there's no way Russell is beating Hamilton in 2021 or the years before. Everything suited Hamilton in those days, and he was the main man at that team. His driving style suited those cars way better and can't be compared to how things were from 2022 onwards. He's also forgetting what an amount of extra pressure a title fight brings. How easy it is to bottle races in the heat of the fight, and Hamilton and Verstappen had a proper fight in 2021. I'm surprised at how much I respect Hamilton for what he showed, especially at the end of that season. They were flawless. Anyway, I drifted off a bit here. To sum it all up, I don't envy Russell because his team's best years were when he wasn't there. He has a mighty quick new young teammate who will most likely beat him soon. And he has no job security until Max Verstappen decides. Oof. Please subscribe if you like this video. And I'd like to point out that I have memberships open, so if you want extra content and early access, then pop in and join my community. Take care now. Doei doei.